Okay, we're back. Probably should have grabbed a coffee, but that's okay. So what we have here now is we have all sorts of fun stuff. So damage and enemies. Let's quickly do an enemy. Even damage. So ideally, we want to be able to take damage from our health, right? But we don't want this to be instant. And, well, we want to play some effects to it. So I'm going to make another little FSM, and this one is going to be called Timer. And I'm going to make a float, and it's going to be called my damage timer. And over here, we are going to float add damage timer 1 every frame per second. And that's all that timer is going to do. So what we're going to say then, I'm going to drag this guy over here, is we're going to make a new entrance for this damage and get rid of this one. Is we are going to get FSM float from our timers, our damage timer, and we are going to float compare. Move this below that. So damage timer, if it is, we'll say 3 seconds. If it is greater than 3 seconds, we will take our damage. And if it's less, no damage. So now we have no damage. You go sit over there. And we have take damage. Go this way. And if we take damage, then we want to set our timer, damage timer, to 0. Simple as that. Okay, so that's for starters. Now that's not the effects, it's just kind of a delay timer. So in this guy, if I now instead on trigger enter do on trigger stay, I'm going to bring him over here and add a next frame event so he doesn't loop endlessly forever. Alright, so now if you watch the parts, we should have absolutely nothing happening. We've hit player. Why are our hearts not going down? Okay, damage or health. So no damage. It is taking some damage. And it says we're at 1. And did I screw these things up? I probably did. Foreground. Oh, right. We haven't changed those colors yet because we swapped them over to images, right? Well, isn't that just silly of us? Okay, let's make those a little darker. Alright. Now we can actually see the difference. So that one's deactivated. Deactivated. Well, that's, Gem's not doing what we want it to do. Name in FSM. Used in FSM. What kind of a trigger is that? So let's go on trigger event, on trigger stay. Should be alright, fine. That's the way you want to play it. Well then we will put a weight here instead. I don't know why I redragged that over. The arrow was already there. So, see that? I don't know why it wasn't working with the next frame. That should have worked just fine, but whatever. Not that worried about it. So our health is going down. We're not moving. Alright, well, I don't know why that is doing that. That is just freaking weird. So let's just try something here. I mean, no, really, this is just for testing purposes anyways. It's not going to be an issue when things are actually working this way. Trigger enter maybe. Alright, well, anyways, the idea of the hearts work, time-wise. So this whole diamond thing is just I'm getting rid of that. So the enemy, if we create an enemy, this is our enemy. He does not look like much. And what do we have for enemies? If we go to sprites, possum, some crazy evil possum. So we need a animator, and we need a animator controller. And we need to bring up our animation window. Animation. Idle, jump, eagle, attack. So possum, I don't know if he actually has an idle or if he's always moving. So we'll go like that. And we're going to drag all those in like that. And obviously we don't want it out like that. That's pretty good. Okay. So sprite render, let's drag one of those guys in to start. So this is our little enemy. We can give him a Capsule Collider 2D. direction horizontal. Let's make it a decent size. That might be a little big. Probably need to bring it down just a smidge and over a smidge. So there is our enemy. If we hit play, we can see him trucking along. Okay, let's give him a rigid body too. Continuous and constraints on the Z for rotation. So we are going to build a layer for the enemy, and we're going to stick our enemy on that layer, and we're going to build a tag for our enemy, and we'll give him that tag. So what should we do? Do we have it so we jump on the enemy and we kill him? And if he hits us on, you know, one of the sides, it hurts us? Do we just do a timer? Decisions. So, okay, what if, and this is just thinking, what if we create a empty and we stick it up here, and we give that a box collider, and we shrink it right down, and we mark that as a trigger. We have a bit of a landing spot. Okay. So, and let's do another one even. Let's go over here and add a box collider. Well, we might have to do some configurations with this after because of sprite flipping. But for now, this will probably work just fine. All right, we'll probably almost need two of those, one on each side, and then activate whichever one we're facing. And that's a trigger. So if this guy has an FSM and it has a trigger event 2D with the tag player, send event, hit player, store collider, player. So here we have hit player. We want to send an event to the player, to the health, damage, and then we will wait, I don't know, it really doesn't matter because the player has a half a second or a 3-second delay on taking damage, right? So there we have this guy, and he will, you know, damage the player. Now, if we run into that, or if he runs into us. So the other thing we're going to want is enemy death. Right, so we have an effect here called enemy death, and it's got a whole bunch of things. So we need a animator, and we'll need an animator controller called enemy def. And enemy def can have this controller. Again, we pop up our animation window. I don't know why I don't have this in dock somewhere, but hey. Get an animation called death. And drag all these and stick them in there. And if I hit play, here we have an explosion. That's pretty good. Okay, so let's start this guy off with that sprite. And let's prefab this. So let's put it into our stuff and destroy it. And put this over here. 0, make a pool. So pooler pool. And the prefab is enemy death. And we'll call this one death. And can grow, probably don't need a whole whack of them. So if and only if this kill spot gets triggered with a trigger enter 2D, then we want to say object destroy, which we also could pool these enemies as well. We want to destroy that enemy, but first we want to pooler spawn death at this enemy. Okay, and just like our star, this guy needs a FSM with a wait going for, say, roughly 3 seconds. Control click and go over here and pooler destroy self. Okay, so if we come over here, we take damage. Oh, we got to give him a way to not be sliding. And if we jump on him, we get that. Okay, so obviously that. Alright, well, let's bring this one down to 2, so it obviously doesn't need to be that long. But the other thing with that one is on the death, don't have it loop. Okay, so this guy here, let's give him a physics material. Should probably go with like a max friction for this guy, but for now we'll just use the terrain one. So here I have, I've jumped on him and he dies. So the timing of that was still a little long. Let's try 1 second. In reality, you can just base it off your frames, but whoa, that's not going to work for us. Alright, that's starting to look a little better. Right, because really, I mean, if you look at your frames, if you have it, you're running at 60 frames per second kind of idea. If your death animation's 30 frames, you know it's a half a second long. I totally forget how long ours is. I randomly didn't bother thinking about it. Okay, so here's like a little basic enemy. And just so he can stop running all over the frickin' place while we're testing, set velocity 2D to 0. That should stop him from frickin'. Yeah, well, the death looked pretty good there. We need some sound effects, obviously. Yeah, see how he's not sliding everywhere now. Oh yeah. So if the player gets hit, we want, right, we're going to take damage, right, based on our timer. And we take this damage. We also want, might be better to do this in a new FSM, hurt effect. So what we could do is, when we take damage, where's our player? So when we take damage, we need to find out who is damaging us so we can get a direction, so that we can move in an opposite direction. Right, so right now we just take damage. Right, the enemy is just sending damage. So what we're going to do is say on the enemy, set event data. Make sure this guy's at the top, or at least above the send event. And we need to set game object data as our self. Okay, so self is this guy. So now on the player, when we take damage, we can get event data. Get event info. And move this guy up to the top. And we have sent by as well. So this was hurt by. That's who hurt us. So what we're going to do, I probably don't need the hurt effect. We could probably just leave it in here. Is say over here we get position. Yeah, sure, 2D of hurt by world space. We need to get position of ourselves. And because I'm click happy, I did all that. The order of those two don't matter. Vector to operator. This one does matter. It's gotta go below. So we need to now. How these guys go in does matter though. So we have, if we do hurt by and ourself, we get a direction. If we swap those, we get the opposite direction. Right, so if we subtract, we should get a direction going from the enemy to us. And we're going to store that as a direction. Now we can add force 2D on our owner, impulse, vector, direction, and we might need to multiply that, but let's just kind of see how that plays out. So definitely need to multiply that. So we get our self vector, the enemy vector, we get the direction, we add force to our self. Now we also have this guy adding force, so we gotta, I wonder if we should probably add a damage here with a weight. For, I don't know, say 0.5 seconds to a finish. So under health, when this happens, we can now send event to game object, move damage, and put this above the forces. And vector to multiply, and put this above the force. Direction, multiply it by, I don't know, say 5. Alright, let's see what happens with that. Direction 1.5x. Okay, so that is going to be the other way around. Self and hurt by. Uh-oh. Nope, there's a bit of a force happening there. Okay, so not a very pretty force though. Let's multiply that by 10. And see if that's good enough. Boop. Yeah, see that 3-second. Okay, so I think 10's a little much. Let's go 7 and vector to add. Let's add just a little bit of upwards force as well. Just a smidge. So direction, we're going to add 0.2. See if that gives us a little bit of a pop. And we got to fix that part where we can't get damaged. Apparently right in the beginning. let's add a little more to that. Wait, we're doing this after the multiply, right? Yeah. Well, that's gonna make it hard. All right, let's go. Let's try this back at 0.2. Now that is before the multiply. Boop. Yeah, see, that's a lot better. It's got a little bit of a hop to it, right? That's pretty good. Okay, so let's see what's happening when we first hit, right? Because that right there. So he's saying not enough time has passed. So I think damage timer should probably start at 3 seconds. Right? Only makes sense. There we go. I think 3 seconds might be a little long though for not taking damage. So what about 1.5 seconds? Okay, that's better. Probably almost take it down to 1 second. Okay, so that's one of the other things that we can add on to that to make it look good. Is we have a hurt player and we have a trigger for hurt. So let's go to our player and go to our health, and if we've gotten to this stage, let's set animator trigger. Move to top, hurt. Okay, what about a sound? Audio, play. Which I didn't click on it very well. There we go. Make sure to unclick that. So, do we have a good hurt sound of some type? Oh, it's actually not that bad. Okay. What about an effect? So what do we have for hit effects? Random text. That would actually also be kind of cool on the enemy as well. Well, I don't know if we need we should have one. It's kind of cartoony. Alright, so player. Oh, because he's in the move. Right. Let's go from any state. There we go. That works pretty good. Okay. So, debating whether we should. Well, yeah. You know what? Let's add that. Get rid of the destroy. Let's not play on awake. Set it actually on the player. And scale it down. That might look a little odd, but that's okay. That's okay. So let's tell this guy to play, and see how that looks. So now we have there we go. That's looking better. Let's save that just because I've lost too many things too often to not saving. So one of the other things I think would be kind of neat, say hurt effect, is, okay, if you look at the player's color, what if we flickered that? Right? So for example, let's just set property, unless we have this, which we do. Set sprite color. So what would be the optimal way to do this is every frame set it like that. Right, 'cause right now it's like this. And if we want to flicker that red, then we could animate it, but store value at red every frame. So the curve is this is so 1. So 1 would give us red. Okay. I'm going to move that there. And I'm going to move this guy to 0. Actually, I can hit enter, say value 0, and enter, and value of 1. Now, what if I add a key here and say enter value of 1, and I can add a key here, value of 0, and add a key here and a value of 1, and add a key here, value of 0, add a key here, value of 1, add a key here, value of 0, no, let's go like this, there we go, and add a key here, value 0, add a key here, value of 1. Some sort of weird flickering thing that looks all ballistically crazy. Sure. So we need to sample at 0 to 1. So we are going to get float add add 1 per frame sample at sample. Okay, so if I turn that on, we should get this weird, yeah, kind of this weird color thing happening. Wrong color, but whatever. So what if now we go wait, obviously for 1 second, let's go 1.1. And let's make this not the start state. This thing's going to have its own here we need to make sure this color goes back to normal. Right, because right now they're all one. Kind of like that. So on the player now, if I go to our spot here and go send event to ourselves to the hurt effect damage, we should have now timeline wise it is a little much. Let's go 0.8 seconds. .7 seconds. Okay. So the other thing we need to do is, because when we damage we're adding this, right, and then we're going to set this value, we actually need to move this damage up here, take this one away, feed into this one, and we need to set this value. This sample value back to 0, and probably the red value, which shouldn't really matter, but we'll do it anyways. So it's kind of like a reset. There we go. Save that. So now we have we have an enemy who damages us, and our guy does some weird effects. We can also jump on our enemy and kill him. So we should probably do some AI stuff. Maybe I'll say that for a little later. AI stuff can get somewhat complex, especially when it's 2D, because we don't have the nav mesh. So we'll use ray casts and distance checks and vectors, all sorts of fun little stuff like that. But we do have coins, right? So we can create a system for spawning coins. We have, what about death? We don't have a death yet. So where is our Sunnyland? We have an enemy death. We have player climbing, player crouch, hurt, idle, jump and run, crouching. You know what would be kind of neat to do, I think, is what if we put in not gems and cherries in the environment. So bushes, right? Okay, so we have bushes, we got some trees, that stuff's all cool and all. Make sure it's behind stuff. But the bushes, if it's at a -1 and it's behind our player, and if it goes to 0, it's still behind our player. If it goes to 1, our player's behind it. What if our player can hide inside a bush? Right? For example, what if we have, okay, we need a way to detect the bush. So what about a box collider? Trigger. And let's give this a new tag. Call this one bush. Okay, so we're going to tag this guy bush. Now we have this bush. Alright. Now, I'm literally just going to build another FSM. We got tons of FSMs happening, eh? That's okay. Lots of FSMs is okay. Bush hider. So, if we get a trigger event 2D on enter with a bush, we are at bush. And if we get a trigger exit, we have left the bush. Plain and simple. Now, if we have a bush, and if we are in here, what would happen if, say, we get button down? And by get button down, I meant get key down. Let's say E. We can do a hide. And what is a hide? Well, we would set the bush sprite rendering order in layer. Order in layer. So yes, we do have that. Our saved bush to 1. And we're going to have to make sure that if we exit the bush, whether we've entered it or are hiding in it or not hiding into it, we need to make sure that it is at -1, regardless of what happens. Okay. So we have entered the bush. Nothing happens. If we hit a button, we're going to hide behind the bush. And if we leave the bush, we're going to make sure the bush goes over here. So we also need this guy over here. Because if we've left the bush, we need to go like that. Okay, so we have this kind of a simple little thing now, where we go there, we go, whoop, just like that. And we're behind the bush. We're being all stealthy. We leave the bush, we're behind it, but we go back into it. Okay? Maybe we should have it so you can pop in and out. Right? Because right now we just have it going in. Okay, so what if you're here and you get key down again? And then let's unhide. And unhide wouldn't necessarily take us this way. Unhide will take us over here, because we're still at the bush. But we want to be in front of the bush. So that way we can still enter the bush in and out. And then we can adjust a bool. There we go, we're hiding. We can adjust a bool for the AI when they're trying to, say, find the player. If the player is hiding, then the AI can't see us. There we have a little bush. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Okay. So, what else do we have? Well, we need death. So what happens if we die, right? Like, we don't have a death animation per se, right? We can hurt the player, but then that's it. So if we have a bool saying dead, I'm going to come off of this hurt, and if bool is dead is false, this will work. If it's not false, let's just stay in the hurt permanently. All right. So if we are dead, we need to set animator bool dead to true. The other thing I think we will do is we are going to disable our collider after we add force above all of that, impulse on our, let's go straight on there. So we take our damage. Oh man, that is way too much force. Way too much force. So let's just cut that down like that. Oh, I guess one of the other things I wanted to do is, so on our shaker, we have a hit, right? And we're using that for when we land. I think we should also add it in for when we take damage. I think that is a marvelous idea. Where is send event? There is send event. We're not sending it to the owner. We're going to send it to not that guy, to the shaker. FSM hit. Okay. The reason I thought of this is because I was going to do something else with the camera too on death. Right? So probably hardly notice it, but it's there, and it'll actually add a lot. So this guy here, what if we add an event called dead, make it global, and he's not going to do anything for now, except for now, if we die, of course I always have to double click that a million times. So let's send an event to the camera saying that we're dead. More or less stop following us. Alright. And the force wise, that's still a lot. There we go, that's looking pretty good. Okay. So, I think we should probably call this video good for now, and then the next video will focus on pretty much just the AI. That's just how complex AI can get anyways, is we'll have to almost do an entire video just on how we want to do our AI. Right, so he can see us if we're outside the bush or whatever the case may be. And then after that, maybe we'll focus a little more on a bit of the level design and adding in coins so we can start running around and collecting things and killing the enemies. Alright, so we'll catch you guys in the next video.